So the Akashic Records, they're the knowing or the imprint of everything that has ever happened, is happening, and could happen. People refer to them as a living library or the cosmic mind. The Bible refers to them as the book of life. And while we are in this human body, in this human incarnation, we opt into a certain level of amnesia where we forget about our knowing of the totality of the Akashic Records. And we do that so that we can fully drop into this human experience, because a big part of this human experience is all of the surprises, all of the mystery, all of the twists and turns. And it's all about perceiving and relating to life from this seemingly limited and linear lens, which we call like the human mind. But for many, many years, I feel like humanity has been conditioned to believe that in order to receive divine insight or higher perspective or spiritual knowledge, we have to go through a priest or a rabbi or some sort of other spiritual teacher, somebody who is somehow initiated and able to speak the word of God. Yet each and every one of us is an aspect of God, an extension of God. And our minds, our beings, our souls are inherently connected to the Akashic Records and one with the Akashic Records. So the time period that humanity is in now is that we are remembering our oneness with divinity, and we are starting to reclaim a lot of our power and a lot of our capacity to come into this higher perspective. I don't believe that as a human being, we necessarily have access to the Akashic Records in their totality, because the Akashic Records are the knowing of infinity and eternity. And that is incomprehensible to the human mind. Like I've gone so deep into prayer, asking life, help me to fully understand and see the totality of the Akashic Records. And what has transpired as a result of that is such an expansion of my consciousness that like I felt really ungrounded and just couldn't even like make sense of life. So I don't feel like we necessarily, it's not relevant for us to access the totality of it, yet it is relevant for us to come into these elevated states of consciousness that are more resonant with the perspective or the consciousness of the Akashic Records. And I think of it as like a higher state of consciousness, a higher perspective. Like if you think of the perspective of a bird, it can see everything in front of you and like everything behind you, versus this more grounded perspective. You can only see this right here. I also experience the Akashic Records as like we get to see what we're currently unconscious to or what is in our subconscious. And in some ways, many of us are just walking around through life like, you know, the horses, you see them and they have those little blinders and they don't have that access to their periphery vision. It's like we're not really seeing the whole picture because we have formulated these beliefs based on our experiences. So these beliefs have been proven by our life experiences that we then project onto life and then continue to perpetuate these same experiences. And then we believe that's how life is. And it really limits our perspective. And as soon as we come into a higher perspective, we begin to see, whoa, I had this past experience that created this belief within me. And now I've been perpetuating that belief onto life. And that has become this like repeated pattern, this repeated experience that I'm proving to myself. And that to me is that limited perspective. As soon as you come into Akashic perspective, it's like, wow, I'm seeing all of these things that I didn't see before, that I just took for granted as truth, that I just believed to be real and true. The other thing I love about the Akashic Records is that they help us to see life through this lens of unconditional love and complete and total compassion. Through Akashic perspective, there's no blame, there's no guilt, there's no shame. So it's so easy for us to look at our own behaviors that we may not be proud of, that we may have a lot of blame around or guilt around, and see them through a new light where we can hold them in so much compassion, in unconditional love, and realize where these behaviors stemmed from, and see the inherent innocence within us and within all that we do, as well as everybody. like everyone. So the Akashic Records really help us forgive. They help anchor in compassion. They help anchor in trust of life. They do so much, and they've been such a valuable and transformative tool in my life. So it's such an honor and a joy to share with all of you. So as we get into the group reading part, know that you can ask anything and that I will be doing my best to communicate exactly what it is I see, feel, and sense. And not every question will be answered. Sometimes we're looking for a very specific answer, and that's not necessarily what comes through. But ultimately, what's going to come through is what is most empowering and healing and transformative for you to receive at this time, whatever it is that you are ready to hear and ready to integrate into your life. And you're welcome to just take in and receive whatever it is that resonates with you. And if something is shared that doesn't totally resonate with you, you can just let it move through you. And I really want to encourage all of you to allow your locus of power to remain within you. The Akashic Records will never tell you what to do. So should I do this or should I do that? Questions will be answered in a different way, just perhaps illuminating the possibilities of different decisions. And the Akashic Records, although they may reveal future likelihoods, I don't feel that future predictions are always necessarily so accurate or even like responsible to be sharing. Because the Akashic truth is that each and every one of us is playing a role in the creation of our individual futures and also our collective human future and our collective human destiny. So my intention in sharing these readings is to empower each and every one of us to step into a space where we are contributing to the creation of the future that we most desire, the one that we wish to be seeing. At this time, there are so many different predictions circulating through social media around like all the awful things that are coming, all the terrible things that the government is up to or that other groups of people are up to. And there truly is so much more happening than that. Humanity is undergoing this incredible healing. And part of healing is we have to become aware of how wounded we are and of what has wounded us. And a reality that we're facing now is that we've suffered so many atrocities and traumas at the hands of each other. So many human beings, we've just really mistreated each other, and we've created a lot of mistrust and a lot of anger and hostility and antagonism and paranoia. And all of that is existing within the collective human psyche. And that's starting to come up to the surface, to be purged, to be reconciled, to be brought to light. And sometimes when intuitives are picking up on this, they can turn that into, oh, this is what's happening. This person is doing like this bad thing. They're up to this, like humanity is dark, or really it's just aspects of us that are coming to light, and our darkness is coming to light. And a darkness is not necessarily bad or evil the way that the mind might define evil. It's just our unconsciousness. It's what we're not conscious to. It's what we're not aware of. And something that human beings have not been aware of for a really long time is their inherent interconnectedness and interdependence on each other and on the earth, and the ways in which we're all one. So when we harm another, it's actually harming ourselves, both directly because that person is an aspect of ourselves. They are an extension of our consciousness. It is one consciousness, one intelligence, one brilliance that flows through all life. And then also indirectly, it's like every action that we take that impacts another is impacting us, because we're all a part of one same earth body. Like we're realizing, especially over the last 6 months with the whole Corona thing, how our health depends upon the health of everybody around us, and how our health also depends upon the health of the planet. So a lot of the darkness that's coming up at this time, I feel, is realizing how much we have forgotten that and strayed from that. And just we're starting to like feel how painful that actually is. I'm going to see the chat here. Oh, okay. So someone asked a question, what type of crystal I have over my heart? It's an amethyst. And is it important to wear a gold chain rather than silver? I feel like every metal, every crystal has its value. I just like gold, so I just put gold on. Yeah, I like how it looks with my skin. Okay, I'm gonna drop into the, oh. Okay, so I see the questions coming in, I love it. I'm gonna drop in to the prayer and I'm gonna connect and I'll share whatever comes through and then I'll open it up to questions. Spirit, support me in coming into an elevated, expanded state of consciousness so that I may become one with your perspective. Set aside the totality of my personality so that I may serve as a clear channel for your divine loving guidance and knowing. Allow me to see this new moon Akashic group as they are seen in the light of the Akashic Records. Help me to know them as they are known in the mind of God. Enable me to share all the communication of their masters, teachers, and loved ones with integrity, clarity, and love. And so it is. The Akashic Records are now open. So the first transmission that I'm seeing come through is this, it's like this beautiful energy flowing through each and every one of us. I would love to invite you to come into like a meditative state. Perhaps close your eyes, allow yourself to receive this energy as it is one that is supporting us in releasing any heaviness, any density, any ideas that we have been holding on to that are creating contraction within our fields, that are diminishing our power, or creating fear-based thoughts that are no longer relevant for us to hold on to or relate to the world with. There is a lightening occurring at this time. This new moon is bringing with it this opportunity for a new beginning. A lot of the expectations that we've built that have been based on a more pessimistic worldview are being dismantled and falling to the wayside as we are opening up to a sense of greater expansion, connecting more to the love within our hearts, the love within life, the love that each and every one of us has for humanity, which at times has been tainted by how wounded we've been by each other and by humanity. But all of that is healing. We are reconciling it. And that is allowing for this opening of the heart, which then allows our creative energy to flow more freely through us as each and every one of us is becoming more empowered to give birth to all of our creative visions and dreams. We're moving into a new level, a greater capacity to have these ideas in our minds, these ideas that flow through us from the divine of what our gifts are for life, what it is that we want to share with humanity, with the earth, with others at this time, and then actually doing it, birthing it into existence. I'm just seeing this beautiful, beautiful image of so many of our troubles, of our heaviness, of our density being left behind us, and this renewed sense of hope, faith, trust in ourselves, in each other, and in life. Things are not getting worse, they are getting better. We are healing, we are evolving, and sometimes that can look counter to what we believe it will look like or should look like. It can look like it's getting worse. It can look like it's getting darker. But trust that this is what it looks like to heal. This is what it looks like to transform, to grow, to change. We have so many examples of transformation, of growth in the natural world. The example of the caterpillar dissolving into a puddle of toxic nonsense, toxic sludge within the chrysalis to then emerge as the butterfly. Or the ways in which the trees, they release all of their leaves. It's a complete and total letting go, a death, only to emerge brand new in the spring, blossoming, so alive, so full of vitality, new and brimming with new life. This is the experience that we're currently in right now. We're in such a transformation, and so much of who we have been and the systems that we've created and all of that, all that we've created, so much of what we've created is being dismantled and dying, because a lot of it was founded upon these more unconscious perspectives of life. So we see so many of the systems that we have in place that humanity has created that have been founded upon greed and ideas of separation, taking from the earth instead of caring for the earth, with the intention of profit over service. All of that is falling away right now, and it has to fall away so that we can create something new. And the new that we are creating is what you could call heaven on earth. It's an experience where each and every one of us is prioritizing love and prioritizing caring for ourselves and caring for each other and caring for the earth, prioritizing service and showing up in integrity and harmony with the ways of life. There is an awakening occurring, and not one human being on the planet is immune to this awakening, no matter how it looks. Everybody is in their own process of awakening. Sometimes when I'm seeing this, what I'm seeing right now is this example of me personally. Sometimes when I'm like on the brink of this incredible expansion, this incredible growth, I can almost like fall backwards into this old habit. Like for me, one of my greatest unconscious challenges, self-sabotaging habits was binge eating. It was something I started struggling with in like 7th grade, and it just became a way of coping. And even as recent as like 2 years ago, before a major growth, before this major incredible expansion in my life, sometimes I would have this like really terrible binge, and I'd be so confused, like what happened, like why I was doing so well. And that's the nature of growth. It's not linear. It's more cyclical, and sometimes we have to go back and see like, okay, what else is there that is not in complete and total resonance with where I'm headed? And then whatever that is, we have to clear it. We have to purge it out. And sometimes purging it out means playing it out. So humanity at this time is birthing this new earth, this new society, this new way of relating to each other and of being in the world. And everything that is not in resonance with this new way is being illuminated at this time. And this is what you see happening. And many of us chose to incarnate during this experience with immense gifts to share, to support and hold space for this unraveling, which may look chaotic at times, may feel challenging at times. And with this new moon, a lot of us are releasing a lot of our density, a lot of the heaviness that we've been carrying, a lot of these limiting stories, so that we can show up even more fully in the giving of our gifts. We are becoming more anchored in trust of self, trust of life, trust of all that is unfolding, knowing that Spirit is taking care of every detail, and Spirit has an intelligence, a brilliance to it that is far beyond anything than the mind could even possibly imagine or grasp in even the slightest. So in that recognition, we can just surrender any power and control that we may be reaching for that is actually in the hands of life, in the hands of Spirit. And in that surrender, we then can begin to embrace the power and control that we actually do have. To love, to forgive, to heal, to show up, to share, to respect, love, and honor ourselves and all connected to us, to share our messages, to share our insight, to share our perspective. There is a love here that is blooming. And that love is experienced when we give it, when we share it. That love is wanting to be shared through the expression of our gifts for life and for humanity. And for many of us, we've been holding back. And that holding back can, in a sense, take us out of our alignment, which can bring forth all of these really uncomfortable feelings. But we've done collectively so much clearing, so much healing, so much transmutation that we're now ready to move forward on our soul's mission with hope for humanity and with faith in the beauty of this life and everything that is available to us here. It's not all work, it's not all challenge, although that is an aspect of it. There's a possibility of so much love and fun and joy and delight and enjoyment and connection and just ecstatic experience, intimacy with ourselves, intimacy with Mama Gaia, intimacy with each other, this heartfelt, deep connection at a whole new level as we are working through more and more of the barriers that we've had around our hearts for so long. It's important to have so much patience and compassion with yourself and everybody connected to you and realize where we are coming from. Look at human history, all of the wars, all of the traumas, all the ways of relating that have become normalized, that have been accepted as standard, as simply the way things are, that actually have embedded within them so much pain and hurt and wounding and trauma. That is what we are emerging from. And when these wounds are playing out through aggression, hostility, and self-centeredness, and these insane games that we see playing out on the world stage, that is actually a call for more love and more compassion and more patience, not judgment, not shame, not blame, not hatred, antagonism, divisiveness. It's calling forth more unity. Love is the healing balm. Love is the foundation from which all new things can grow. When we are resisting what is, when we hate it, when we shame it, when we blame it, we inadvertently perpetuate it. So whatever we see playing out on the world stage or within our own personal lives, we must first accept and embrace before we can grow beyond it. Through our acceptance and embracing of it, we receive it, and in receiving it, we are able to work with it. We are able to alchemize it, to transform it. There's a divine role that each and every one of us is playing within the unfolding of all. And it may seem like such a minor thing when you heal one of your close relationships in your life in comparison to what's happening amidst all of our world leaders and all the powers that be, yet the entire human race is connected through one human psyche. Like we have one human psyche. We are all so interconnected. So when we heal a personal relationship, this has impact. It has a ripple effect within the collective human psyche. And it brings forth healing to all. And a lot of the healing that we're needing at this time is within our relationships. The way we perceive each other and receive each other, how we perceive each other has such profound impact. And there's an opportunity for each and every one of us at this time to contribute to life in a way that brings forth so much fulfillment and joy and sense of well-being within each and every one of us. Oftentimes, the pathway to our greatest fulfillment is the sharing of our gifts, is showing up fully on behalf of all. Thank you for receiving all of that. And I would love to open it up to questions now. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand. I'm going to start with this question just because I was just reading it, which is in the chat. I love this question, and I feel that many of us can relate. I've always felt a lot of pressure to meet other people's expectations and live my life in a way that will win their approval. How does this serve me? And what lessons am I meant to learn from this? So when I ask, how does this serve? I'm seeing how some of this can come from the more primitive aspects of ourselves that are ensuring our own survival. And based on our evolutionary history, back in the day, it was very important that we have the approval of the group, of the tribe, of our society in order to survive, because we had to be welcomed into the community, because to be ostracized would mean to die. So that is one way in which this habit, this pattern became embedded into the collective human psyche. It ensured our survival. And I'm asking, what lessons am I meant to learn from this? The art of balance. While every human being has a reflection to offer us that is valuable for us in some way or another, we need to take the reflections of others in balance with us tuning into the authenticity of ourselves and what is true and real for us, and recognizing that other people's perspectives of us, although they are valid and important to take into consideration, they are also always skewed in some way or another. When people say like everybody is offering you a reflection, everyone is a reflection of you, that has truth to it. And the only clear reflection that exists is the reflection of God, is the perspective of God, because everybody has a certain lens through which they are viewing the world, and a certain lens through which they are perceiving you. Through their perception of you come a lot of judgments, a lot of expectations that have been conditioned into them based on their life experiences from other people. So anytime you receive somebody else's reflection and opinion of you and perspective of you, you're also receiving all of that. So while there are gems in everybody's reflections, there are also aspects that are not necessarily your responsibility to carry, or a clear reflection, so to speak. So the opportunity here is to connect more with our own intuitive knowing through that like deep intuitive sense within ourselves, so that we can get to know ourselves and to begin to purify our intentions, knowing that our intentions are those of love, are those of showing up authentically, and giving ourselves permission to be who it is we are. Okay, when I ask, what are you meant to learn from this? You're meant to learn the like preciousness, the inherent value of who you are, being perfect as it is. There's a sense inside of you of I need to change or somehow be different than who I am or how I am in order to earn love, in order to earn approval. Yet the truth is that your love is inherent. And your acceptance by God, which is the only clear perspective and reflection, is inherent. Your approval by God is inherent to who you are. So the focus then becomes you being so true and real to who you are versus seeking an approval, which will always come from a distorted space. I'm manipulating who I am in order to gain your approval, even though your approval, your perspective of me, is always distorted in some way or another. This is where it's important to not necessarily have the focus of our relationship be on other people. It's our relationship with God, our relationship with spirit, our relationship with source, with the Akashic Records, that becomes the highest priority. And then when we bring that into our relationships, we can create this experience of health within our relationships. We're not placing so much weight on the reactions or the approval of another human being. We're instead collaborating with them and relating to them in a way where we are bringing forth healing with the support of source, or with God, with spirit. I hope that made sense. Sometimes I see things, and to put it into words, as soon as I start putting it into words, I'm like, because it's just such a, yeah. Let me see. How can I move into my own energy and expansion free from the need of validation? First, become aware and notice when you start bringing your attention, your focus into the experience of someone else. When you start trying to see yourself through their eyes, notice when you're doing that. And as soon as you start doing that, bring your attention back to yourself, and then ask to see yourself through God's eyes, through spirit's eyes, through a higher perspective. This higher perspective knows your innate essence. Like, this higher perspective knows your soul, knows your truth, and will then bring light to that. As soon as you start, also you can start to use your emotional responses or reactions, like within your body, as a guiding light. You'll see when you're in relationship with somebody, you'll have like a sort of visceral response when you start saying things that you don't really mean, or start like almost like bending over backwards, or shaping yourself into somebody you're not and showing up in a relationship. Like, you will feel it in some way or another. So allow that feeling to guide you. And then you can ask, like, how can I liberate myself in this moment? It's like, what is the truest, realist expression of me? How can I bring my attention back to myself? This is really important for a lot of us empaths because we're so deeply impacted by everybody around us, by their emotions, that what tends to happen as we're growing up as empaths is that we prioritize other people's experience of us more than our own experience, because other people's experience of us is impacting us so deeply. So as soon as you become aware of this habit, of this pattern, it becomes easier to notice when you're doing that and then come right back to yourself. There can also, okay, so freeing yourself from the need for validation. It's like, can you have that conversation with your inner child? When you start seeking validation from another, where you're validating your own inner child, it feels like this is coming from a childhood wound. And it's a really good habit for each and every one of us to create anytime, no matter what it is that you're doing or feeling or thinking, just validate it for yourself. Like I shared with you all that I used to have a challenge with binge eating. And this was like, I mean, a 15-year long challenge for me. And what really helped me heal it was when I did binge eat, being like, instead of judging myself, like, how could you, like, you should be more spiritually evolved than this, or judging myself, it's, wow, you were so stressed out. You were so hurt by this interaction. Like, I understand you experienced this and this and this in your childhood, and like having so much compassion for yourself, validating everything that you do. Like, of course you did this. I understand why you would do this. I understand why you would feel this way, and I have your back. And also offering that same validation to everybody around us in all the ways in which they behave, even if, you know, they behave badly, so to speak, towards us, validating their experience and validating how they've shown up. And that doesn't mean excusing ourselves from our behavior or excusing everybody else, but starting to create a foundation of knowing that everything that we are is valid, and it all came from a place that was real and true. I developed this binge eating thing as a means of coping, and when I developed it, it worked. I was stressed out, overwhelmed emotionally, and I would just eat an entire sleeve of Oreos, and that would take me out of it. And people think like, oh, this habit of self-sabotage, yet it's actually, there are elements to it that are really self-loving. And when we start to validate ourselves in that way, we don't necessarily need the validation of somebody else, because the validation of someone else will never actually fulfill us, ever. We seek validation from somebody else to get our own validation. So as soon as you just start validating yourself, you'll find that you will naturally stop seeking validation from others, because all that you wanted all along was your own self-validation. And many of us have been taught to invalidate ourselves because when we were children, the world around us invalidated us. When we were upset and crying, I mean, for many of us, everybody had a unique experience, but there collectively, generally speaking, a lot of us didn't receive a lot of like, oh, I understand why you're so upset. I understand why you're throwing this tantrum. I understand why, you know, you threw that on the ground. Like, I feel you. Like, yes, you have every reason to be angry and upset. It's been more like, no, stop that. That's bad. You're wrong. And as children, when other people speak to us in this way, we then start to speak to ourselves in that way. We learn to treat ourselves the way that the world treats us. Our child, like our toddler, our infant brain, it's just so, it's a sponge, and it's taking on these world perspectives. So a lot of us are learning how to unravel at this time these ways of relating to ourselves, and then choosing a new way of relating to ourselves. And in this new way of relating to ourselves, we will stop seeking validation from any external source, and we will no longer distort who we are or our authenticity in order to receive validation from others. Thank you, Amanda, for that question. I loved it. Okay, it looks like everybody is sharing their questions here. So maybe we'll just do it that way. You can, if you're Emily, or if you're Just reading Emily's question. If your hand is raised, you can just type your question in here. And I'm going to move through them and see like which one pops up. And I'm just asking for the energy of each one of us present and everyone who's going to turn into this replay to help me choose the questions that we dive into. Okay, I'm reading this question from Renata. What is the Akashic perspective on grief? How can we approach such devastating experiences like losing a loved one through the eyes of Source? Well, okay, so there are many elements to it. Grief is often arises from a perceived loss. And the collective human psyche has made a habit of focusing so much on what we have lost and not seeing what we have gained or what the reality of this loss has been. The collective human psyche has created a lot of attachments to how things are, thinking that this is somehow better or superior, how things are, and resisting change. When it comes to death, the collective human psyche has a very perverted relationship with death. It is very distorted. From a Akashic perspective, death is this beautiful transformation and this incredible liberation. It is an elevation of consciousness. It is a returning to source. And there is no true and real death in the sense where something is gone. Nothing is gone. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It is simply transformed. So when our loved ones die, well, everybody is going to die. We're all going to die. We've died countless times before. We will die countless times more. We're constantly dying, even within this human experience of life. Our bodies are made up of these cells that die every day. And I know I've heard the saying that every 7 years we're like comprised of, like, not a single cell is the same than it was 7 years ago. So death is all around us all the time. And ancient societies, while they grieved the loss of their loved ones, like, I miss this person, I'm sad, they also celebrated the death of their loved ones because they knew that it was an elevation of consciousness for them, that it was a beautiful transformative experience into a new world, into a new way. So with this knowing, with this perspective, losing a loved one doesn't feel quite, it's devastating in its own way, but it feels like right now in the human psyche, there's this feeling of like losing a loved one, of like, that shouldn't have happened. That was an awful tragedy. Something has gone wrong in life. But that's not the reality. From a Akashic perspective, no one ever dies prematurely. Everybody, even when it is a suicide, dies when their mission on this planet is complete. And it cannot be any other way. So with that acknowledgement, the devastation is experienced differently. It becomes more of like a devastation that we can embrace, like a heartbreak that we can embrace, that like transforms us, that opens our hearts, that connects us more to the spirit realm. What a better way I mean, there's really no better way to connect to the spirit realm than just lose someone that you love so much, who you felt so close to in this human incarnation. Instead of holding on to this idea of something has gone wrong, which then creates a resentment towards life and a resentment towards God. Like, how dare you take away this loved one that I love so much? Like how could you do this? Those types of perspectives they limit our moving through grief and moving through loss. Grief is necessary, and the grieving process is so sacred and so divine. And the perspective of source can help move you through it in a way that can actually help bring you closer to love and to your love for the person who has passed on. And who, in opening your heart, can actually help empower you. Loss can help us realize how ephemeral this experience of life really is. A lot of human beings are walking around on the planet thinking that they have forever here and taking each other for granted. And sometimes heartbreak and loss can wake us up out of that and wake us up into the reality, knowing that each and every one of us could die at any moment. Nothing is guaranteed here. And when we have that perspective, that actually helps anchor us into that energy of like seizing the moment and of speaking what wants to be spoken and of sharing our love with our loved ones and of making all of our big visions and dreams happen now. So that energy can actually be really supportive in us all living our best lives. Thank you for that question. I hope that helped. Okay, I love this question that was sent. I feel so drained and exhausted, and I feel like I'm wasting so much time, and there are so many things I should be doing, but I don't have any energy. What's the best way to handle this? The first thing I heard was honor your feelings. Do not underestimate how much energy it takes to heal and transform. Everything it is that you want to be doing, that you like see in your mind's eye, you will be doing, but please don't try to rush it and do it now when you actually need to be in a healing, transformative cocoon. When you need to be in this chrysalis. There is so much changing within our own consciousness at this time, and it requires rest. And collectively, we don't really prioritize rest. We don't understand the nature of healing and the nature of transformation. And we have overglorified and overvalued productivity. And we have been taught to value ourselves based on how productive we are or how much we do, like this outward tangible proof of everything that is occurring. Yet all of us in this lifetime at some time are going to need to go through these cocoon type of experiences where it's like we need to create a sacred nest for ourselves where we can unravel, where we can feel, where we can cry. We are moving through so much pain at this time. A lot of pain is coming up, and we need the space to do that. And when we resist it, it can create this experience of like perpetually being drained, because resistance creates a feeling of being drained. It's like we're resisting our own exhaustion, but our exhaustion is there for a reason. It's because we're meant to rest. And if we're not able to do what it is we want to do in the world, it's not because we have to or should push harder or force ourselves. It's because we need to undergo some sort of healing that then will empower us to be able to create what it is we want to create with greater ease and grace. A lot of us believe that there is something inherently wrong or broken within us. And when we believe that, we think that we need to force ourselves or push ourselves or manipulate ourselves into doing things that we don't necessarily feel ready to do. Or we think that there's something wrong with our process of like, I feel like I just need to lie in bed for like 6 months. But there truly is a perfection within all of this. Sorry, I'm trying to mute people. Okay. There truly is a perfection behind like a lot of our feelings, and the way in which we are able to receive the healing is just to surrender into the nest, into the cocoon. The more that we resist it, the more that we try to keep doing, or the more that we judge it, we don't really allow the process to take hold and to complete. And we actually can then make the process be longer than it needs to be. So there is no time that is wasted. There are things happening in our unconscious and subconscious that the human mind may not be aware of that are so incredibly valuable. So incredibly valuable. So please honor these periods of exhaustion. Like, we're all going to go through them. Before I started doing Akashic Record readings, I spent like on and off like 2 years in bed with like autoimmune disease, feeling terrible. And I was like, whoa, I'm wasting so much time. But when I emerged from that, I was a radically different person, a completely different person. If you knew me like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I've moved through so much, like just drug addiction, like being so anxious and so depressed, and these periods of cocoon, of feeling so drained, so exhausted, like just completely incapable, have facilitated such a shift for me, have really facilitated so much healing for me. And that's what many of us are moving through at this time. So please honor this process. Okay, so the question it landed on is Maureen's question. I have been going through a transformational growth and made a significant change in my life. I literally let go of a way of being that no longer serves me and let go of related things that no longer serve me. I'm asking for some guidance as I navigate this brand new place of my growth and awakening. What do the records have to tell me for this moment as I go forward? The first thing that I heard was to just, it feels like you will inevitably be moving into an experience unlike any experience that you've had before, as you have become a person that you have never been before. And you'll be letting go of ideas that you've had of yourself around your own limitations or around who you are, because you are naturally giving birth to someone, something new. Everything in your life is being born anew. You've cleared so much. So much has been cleared. So much new is coming in. There's actually nothing that you necessarily need to do. It is simply happening. It is all coming forth. It is all being birthed through you at this time. This is a message for the group related to this new moon as well. There's an effortlessness into what is emerging from this space that has been created. There's nothing that you necessarily have to do. It's more of an allowing and a receiving and a trusting. So can you surrender to that trust? It's like I just feel energy just moving through. And as that energy moves through, there's a natural new expression of a new you. And it doesn't need to be thought out or planned or like strived for. It simply is. This new you simply is. Thank you for that question. Okay, the other question that's standing out. I feel like I have many different gifts to offer. But as I approach the end of all my savings, I'm wondering what is the most aligned way to offer my gifts and thrive financially. How can I tune in to get an indication of what to share first or whether to do several simultaneously? So what I saw was this, it's like moving the energy from the mind or any sort of planning or even like any decision making and dropping it into the heart and into the intelligence of the body. So it's moving more towards like a personal reading. Just for a moment, Raphael, what I'm feeling in you is that your body holds so much power and so much intelligence, and it knows how to guide you. And there's like this like call like deep inside of you where you know exactly what to do. There's this like potency, this energy of your body, this intelligence in your physical form that knows what it is that you're here to do. And the focus is not on money. That just comes as a result of you stepping into trusting yourself, trusting where you are guided, unraveling some of the stories that you have around life being challenging or in any way unfair, so that you can let this energy flow freely, this potency, this power that is yours to receive and to channel through you. It is your destiny. There's a freedom occurring where you can do what you want when you want in terms of your service. And if you really, really listen and you really, truly trust, you'll hear guidance around moving forward in a way that brings you all that you could ever need or want. You will be provided for. You are provided for. And there's a trust, an unraveling of the complications of the mind. The mind wants to complicate it. It wants to create problems. It wants to believe that there is some sort of forceful action that needs to be taken, yet that is not the case. What is wanting to occur is a surrender, a relaxation, a complete and total trust, so that you may move forward and simply be in your gifts, be an expression of your gifts, be an expression of your abundance and of your prosperity, which is inherent to who you are. It is not something that you necessarily need to create as much as it is something that you allow. So the theme for this group specifically is there's a lot here around allowing and welcoming in, and an unraveling of this conditioning of like, so many of us have been taught that like you need to work hard for money, like you need to do this job that you may not want to do in order to like receive an income. It's like, how can you just be who you are, like fully and completely? And like, Raphael, for you, I'm seeing like this creativity and this like power. It's just like so much energy. And it's like, like it's so much energy, and like express that and be that. And like, just everything, nothing else matters. It's the full expression of you. And in that comes everything you could ever need, because you're one with life. I feel so much feminine energy and so much like goddess energy. And of course, the goddess is always provided for. Like I saw the image of like the goddess being fed the grapes. It's like, it always comes in, and it's not something that when it comes from the mind too much, of course, the mind will help the creation of that. But there are still too many ideas that in the minds that come from like the collective human conditioning around how we need to, in a sense, distort ourselves in order to earn a living. Like I need to go to this 9 to 5 job and do something I don't really want to do to be worthy of money, to be worthy of creating a living. There's little remnants of that still in there that are needing to be pulled away. It's like, nope, you are here to be the full expression of you, to just be like free and just be you, and to host workshops and to host like healing experiences for people and transformative experiences and fun experiences. And I feel a lot around expression and movement of energy and like using the potency of our emotions, like the potency of our like feminine energy, like just there's like power there to transform, to transmute, to create something new, to like destroy, so that something new can be created. And that right there is such a valuable gift that nothing more needs to be. And it's more simply like, it's like the focus needs to actually be not on finances, because there's a limiting story there. There's like a fear there, like an unconscious limiting belief that is blocking the full receiving of what could be when you just step into what it is you actually want to be gifting life. Thank you. It's an amazing question. So my attention landed on the name Marie as I was scrolling. Hey Marie. I've heard that our minds affect how our bodies react to certain foods. Each of us with our own unique reactions. How can I brainwash myself enough to not have reactions from food? Okay, so the first thing that I saw was taking the focus away from food and actually our receptivity to life and our receptivity to all of the experiences of life and all of our emotions. And the more that we're able to really receive all of the experiences of life, even the ones that we resist, even the ones that suck, even the ones that judge, and the more that we can accept how life is and what's happening in the world, the more we, in a sense, retrain our bodies, our energy bodies, our psyche, our emotion, our mind, our bodies, it's all one. We retrain that to receive everything, to know that we can receive it, and then to alchemize it, to turn it all into fuel. So it's like we see so much on the in the world happening, we're polluting the planet and our world leaders are doing this and this and this and all of this. How can I receive that, accept it, and then use it as fuel? When there's any sort of rejection or I don't like this isn't good for me, instead of we need to receive the challenges of life as fuel, because sometimes we tend to think this isn't good for me, this challenge isn't good for me, I don't like this, I don't want this. That creates a certain habit within us, which then can translate into food, where we don't accept food and we're unable to digest it properly, and then we have reactions to it. It's like our body doesn't trust its capacity to digest everything when we don't trust our capacity to move through any challenge, to use anything and everything that happens in the world and in our lives as fuel. And when we truly live in this way, then everything that we consume can become fuel and it can serve us in some way. I love that you asked this question, because I've had a lot of limiting beliefs around food. And I remember watching a YouTube video where this very old spiritual teacher, he's very old, he's in incredible health. I don't remember who it was, but someone asked him about diet, and apparently he'd been drinking Coca-Cola every day, and he was like a monk that only ate what was given to him, and the food given to him was very junky food often. And someone asked him about that, and he just laughed. He laughed and said something about how we can turn anything into anything. And that is the power that we have. And so I'm now seeing that and understanding that more as I ask the Akashic Records about this question. How the food is not necessarily the problem. The problem is how we perceive it. And it doesn't start with food. It actually starts with our capacity to digest life and digest our emotions. Yeah, so I would love to invite you to start there. And one other piece is, yeah, I'm seeing how many of us judge certain oh, this experience in life is bad, life, I didn't want this. And then this experience is good for me, I like this. Start embracing all experiences as inherently serving you and good for you, every single one. And when you do that, you learn to trust life. And in trust of life, you can see how everything is a gift. And when you see how everything is a gift, you can then trust food and see how all food is a gift. All foods, they're all a gift from Mama Gaia. And when you trust something, you receive it. And you can integrate it, you can digest it, you can take it in. But if you don't trust it, you're already going to be resisting it. There's some resistance occurring when we have a reaction to food. Just like all of life is a gift, all of our challenges are a gift, all of food is a gift from Mama Gaia, from the planet. Okay, so I'm gonna do, I want to get through all of these questions. I love these. I'm just gonna do one more for now, and I'm actually gonna host again next week because I'm really enjoying this experience, and I feel like there are so many more questions that I would like to address, and maybe I'll address some of these in like YouTube videos that I can create and share with all of you. The question that stood out was Kaylee's. Thank you for this question. As a very EMF sensitive individual, how can I come to more peace with all of the 5G towers going up? The first thing that I saw was the bringing up of these 5G towers is actually very necessary experience for humanity to undergo, and it's actually the path of least damage, if that makes sense. Humanity has created a lot of technologies and really believes in their technologies collectively. And this, I feel like, hold on. It's interesting the way that I'm seeing it right now. And by the way, I don't know why I see what I see. It doesn't mean it's inherently true. Just take what resonates, release the rest. This is just my story that I'm, birthing through and sharing with you. Is that the putting up of 5G is the route humanity has chosen to take to learn more about the impact of their technologies and of like interfering with nature and of the intelligence of nature. And it's actually the path that is least destructive compared to other paths that we could potentially be taking. I feel like humanity is going to come through a really incredible learning from 5G. It's a bit of an experiment, and it feels like the least destructive path, if that makes sense. It's like we need to learn, and this is one way in which we can learn with minimal destruction. And the destruction does seem so massive, yet it feels like it actually could have been worse had we chosen to learn through other technologies and through other means. There's this incredible resilience to the human body. And as soon as we, again, with the food, it's like, can we receive every toxin in our environment? Can we receive every challenge as somehow medicine for us, as an opportunity, as something that we can learn how to transmute? The same way that we can transmute EMFs, we learn how to like transmute the intensity of what humanity is purging at this time. And there is a capacity to create well-being within us no matter what. And yes, EMF impacts us, and there is a way in which each and every one of us can relate to this impact in a more empowering way. We have more power. So yes, EMFs impacts the human body. Like there's truth to that. And there's nothing that impacts your human body more than your own consciousness. Nothing. So just remember that when you start to come into these stories of how EMF sensitive you are, yes, that's valid. That is true. You can hold yourself in love and compassion in that. And your consciousness is infinitely more powerful. Every cell of your body is responding and reacting to your perspectives, to the way in which you hold your body, to the way in which you relate to your thoughts, to what it is that you tell your body. So you can bring forth a sense of well-being no matter what is occurring, no matter what else is impacting you. And do not underestimate the transmutational power of your consciousness when it comes to the health and vitality of your physical body. Okay, I love all of these questions. Thank you so much to all of you that contributed these questions. I will be addressing more of them in the days to come because I love them. But in the interest of time, I'm going to complete the questions now. And thank you. I love you guys. I'm going to close the records. Thank you to our masters, teachers, and loved ones. Thank you to the lords of the Akashic Records. Thank you for all of the insight and information and divine healing energy that came through. Thank you for this perspective. May it all be integrated with ease and grace to serve our lives and the lives of all connected to us. And the Akashic Records are now closed. Amen. The Akashic Records are now closed. Amen. The Akashic Records are now closed. Amen. So I would love to share with all of you here that I have a training coming up. We start on Monday. It's a virtual 8-week training, and I would absolutely love to share with you. It was so transformative for me to learn how to access Akashic perspective. Before I learned how to access Akashic perspective, I was perpetually seeking guidance from others and seeking healing from outside of me, like getting energy healings done from other people or going into plant medicine ceremonies or even doing Vipassana meditations. I was doing a lot, and learning how to access the Akashic Records was so empowering because I became the channel for everything that I was seeking. And I no longer needed plant medicines for this higher perspective, and I no longer needed another psychic or intuitive to tell me what was happening. I could just go to the source itself. And my feeling of it all is that although there are prerequisites that we must meet in order to come into an elevated state of consciousness, each and every one of us is capable of accessing the Akashic Records to some degree or another. It's on Monday, and I would love to share with you. And if you have any questions about it, you're welcome to reach out to me. I would love to connect. Or if you want to talk to somebody who has taken the training, I've had a bunch of past participants volunteer to communicate with anybody who may be interested. And yeah, they're happy to share their experience. You're also welcome to book a one-on-one session with me if you feel called to ask any personal questions. And I would love to have you guys next week. I'm going to host next week and then the week after. And it's going to be a free group Akashic record reading. And if you found value in this reading, I would love it if you shared with your community this opportunity, or if you shared the replay with them, if you invited them. And I'd really love to connect with more of you. If you just want to write me a message on Instagram or just in some way make a connection. This community is like really important to me. And also, if you have ideas around ways in which I could serve you, the idea for this call was like, okay, how can I serve this community? So if you have other ideas, I also welcome those as well. Oh, I love these comments. Thank you, thank you. It's so beautiful. Okay, well, I love you guys so much, and I'm wishing you an amazing weekend, and I hope to have you with me again next week. Bye. Thank you.